Hello everyone, welcome to the Stitchin Post. I'm here with Trish today. I'm Nancy. This is Knitting with Nancy. And something we haven't done a lot of is beginner knitting, so getting started. And I want to show you some supplies first, and then we're going to do some demos on how to get started. But I really recommend Church Mouse, the Learn to Knit Companion, and we're going to open it up while I show you some things, but it has a wealth of knowledge in it about yarn, two types of cast-ons, and going forward in knitting and in purling. Products to use, you want to start with what I think is a worsted weight yarn. So I have 3 examples here, 2 of which are superwash, ultra wool, and Malabrigo Rios. We also have ultra alpaca. I picked these because you only need 1 skein to do a scarf. So roughly 26 to 30 stitches on a needle will give you about 60 inches in a scarf knitted. So it's a really good beginning. You don't want to start out trying to do a sweater, a hat, or that. You want to start with just a scarf so you can work on your tension and reading your stitches, which gets into products, different needles. Now, I usually go right for circular needles. Those who know me know that I love Chow lace tip, the red lace tip needles. For those of you who do like wood, we also carry the Chow bamboo. We do have straight needles. I find straight needles cumbersome, but in teaching children, I love these Bryson needles for a couple of reasons. One, they're flexible and they have a great tip. And because they're plastic, they're easier for children to hold. So if you're 12 and under, 11, 12, somewhere in there, even down to a 6 and 7-year-old, I have taught knitting and I have used these needles to start with. To check your gauge and understand is going to be the Susan Bates Knit Check. It also shows you what size needle you might have if you have some at home. If you have your grandmother's or mother's old metal straight needles, I really don't recommend them. If you feel them, they're really slick and they're hard. The Chow ones have a little bit of a grip with it. As you advance your skills, I really like the Cast On Bind Off book. It goes into different reasons why you cast on differently or bind off, such as a stretchy or not, but that's a little bit more advanced. What you will want to get also is a fix-it tool. I love the Coco Knit Stitch Fixer, and I also like their stitch stoppers. And Trish can look at mine here. I like that these fit on the needle, so my stitches don't fall off, and I have to actually physically take it off. And you get multiple sizes in there in the different colors. And I'll show you the fix-it tool here. This one's mine. Same as what they just changed the packaging of it. So getting started, I've kind of told you a little bit about a worsted weight yarn. If you go on to your computer, you can also download that shows you all the different types of yarn, not just wool or plant fiber, but also the diameter. When I talk about worsted, it's the diameter of the yarn, and all yarn has a label on it that will tell you approximately what the gauge is and what size needle is. You can also come in and talk to me or call here, and I can help you with any of the yarns we have here. But let's go around and look at this knit companion that Church Mouse has put out, because it does a really good job in explaining the different weights that I just talked about, needle sizes of it. And right now, if you notice there's 2 different skeins of yarn here, One is unwound in a ball and one is pre-wound. You need to either, if you buy it here, have us wind it on our winder, or you can wind your own ball, but you must wind it up. You do not want to knit off a hank of yarn. You will hate me. It will be a hot mess. So the first thing I want to show you in long tail cast on, I start from a slip knot. If you notice here, they're going right into it, long tail, and I'll do it both ways. A slip knot is crossing, making a cross with your yarn, flipping it over, grabbing the loop in between, and pulling the two tails. It's a slip knot because you can undo it. The book shows you going right into long tail. Sometimes for beginners, I find that cumbersome, so I like the slip knot. So the other way is you can just pull that loop through. We are going to put it on our needle. Now, this is the same, and I want to go over this, whether you are right-handed or left-handed, you should always knit as if you were a right-handed knitter. And a lot of people ask me why. Most patterns, unfortunately, are written for right-handed knitters and cannot always be translated to a left-handed knitter. The difference to me when I teach is left-handed individuals can hold the yarn in their left hand, being their dominant. So I would start you right off in continental knitting. And I'll explain what that is in a moment. So you're going to take your yarn and make it like a wishbone. I grab it with my pinky and I'm going to pull down in between my thumb and my forefinger. And long tail cast on is with the needle. We come up through the thumb, grab my index, and down through my thumb. Let go and gently snug. You do not want to pull tight. Notice how I said snug. I want to be able to move my stitches. If you also notice where my stitches are, and I use my index finger here to hold my previous stitches so they can't get loose. So once again, it's making like a wishbone, under and up through my thumb, grab my index finger yarn, down through my thumb, let go of my thumb, and I can gently pull. Again, my yarn is not up at the tip. It is down here so I don't lose my stitches that I'm putting on. So casting on is the width of your product. Once again, up, over, down. And I'm going to do one more. Up, over, down. That is long tail cast on. In here, you will also see they do a cable cast on. I suggest you do that second and just start with long tail. It's easier to get, and most of us learned from a grandparent or friend how to do long tail. It is the most used. Cable cast on, the reason why I like this cast on, or what I also call a different form is a knitted cast on, is because it's partway to knitting. So to briefly show you a cable cast on, I'm now holding in my left hand my needle. I'm going to take my right needle through my stitches, under my needle. Notice how I can let go. and it's held there. I am going to wrap with my working yarn counterclockwise around, and this loop that I just made over my right needle is what I want to pull through. And let me show that again, because I snug, my needles are kissing. So when I pull this through, my tip is kissing my needle. So I can pull that loop through. I then pull that loop out, and I like to put my index finger here, and my left needle comes from the bottom up and gently pull down. So that is cable cast on. Again, I recommend you doing that next. Once you have your width that you're looking for, again, if you take a worsted weight yarn, between 26 and 30 stitches if you want a scarf. This is 210 yards, 219, roughly 200 yards gives you 60 inches of a scarf. We are then going to focus on the knit stitch, and again for throwers. If you're left-handed, you will get how to do picking, but I'm going to show you today throwing. So with the working yarn front to back of my needle, notice how I'm holding the needles with my index finger and my thumb, and I forget what this finger is called, but I'm using that as well. I'm going to counterclockwise around, and that's important. Again, I'm kissing the stitches, and now, again, look where my stitch is and here, and I'm going to gently come and throw it off the needle. I used to have a friend who, when she taught knitting, she would say, you know, a silly little rhyme. The girls loved it, the boys didn't. It was kind of funny when I taught it. So front to back, around the back, pull through again. If you noticed, I use my index finger here to push my needle down so I can keep them kissing. Come through and gently take it off. And look at again where my stitches are. If you knit up here, your tips are here to facilitate your knitting. But if you knit up here, there's a good chance you're going to lose your stitches, or they're going to be too tight. Again, the diameter of the needle makes the diameter of the stitch. So now we keep going, front to back, around the back, come through and off. And I'm going to do these last 3 stitches. And when all the stitches are on my right hand needle, I'm going to change the needle back to my left hand, and I can start row 2. I always want to start the yarn I'm knitting now is always in front, and I'm going to come down and to the back. And that's important. And the reason why is if I pull this over to the back, I've now stretched my yarn and it might look like 2 stitches, so you're increasing. And we want to keep this down into the back. And once again, I'm going to knit across. Now, the reason why, to start with, I want you only to work on knitting and this knit stitch is because it's important to understand the function of the knitting and what you're seeing and stitch. So if I pull my sample over here, in order to get all the knit stitches on the front and what are going to be called the bumps or purls on the back, which is called stockinette, you knit a row and purl back. But to get your tension where you understand what you're looking at, you need to focus just on knitting and what's called the garter stitch, which will look here. And you will see this in here. And when you have roughly 4 to 5 inches, you want to look at the fabric you're making. If you like what you're doing, then go on and you can purl and you will understand what you're doing. So that is a beginning tutorial on beginning knitting. In my opinion, there is only one stitch in knitting, and that's knitting. The knit stitch is all you need to know. When we learn to purl, it's the reverse of the knitting. So in other words, we are just putting the bump on the other side. So it's still a knit stitch. It's just the look of it. And all knitting is, when you see our samples here, is how we manipulate that one stitch of knitting, whether it be purling or putting cables in or all the fun things that you see in patterns. I hope you enjoy this. Again, please come to the Stitchin Post if you need any help. I'm Nancy and I'm here to help you. I hope you like this video, and if so, please give us a thumbs up and a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We love to hear comments from you, and I do try to get back to you within a day or two. Have a great day. Bye-bye.